What's going on, guys? In today's video, I want to talk about my personal collecting habits and the rules that I follow to help me keep on track. These are all mostly things that I didn't even know that I was following until I sat back and thought about it. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're sitting here watching this, it could probably help you too. Stick around. So let me break down the lines that I collect really quick so you can see where I'm at before we move forward. We all know that I love Marvel Legends, and that's clearly the line that gets the most love from me. But I do have a few more lines that I collect that just don't get as much attention. So those lines would be like DC Multiverse or DC in general. If you watch my previous video, then you know that I'm not the biggest DC Multiverse fan, but I do love DC, just not that line in particular. With that being said, I'll be the first one to pick up a DC Multiverse figure if it's decent. I just hardly come across them, and it's sparingly. The next line that I really like would be the Playmates TMNT figures. The ones with the retro card back, those are the ones I'm checking for right there. The ones that I grew up with as a kid. Those are the ones I'm really checking for. Right now, I think I have all of the re-release versions with the exception of Rat King, and I think Casey Jones came out. But besides that, I have all the other ones that came out. When it comes to NECA, I started collecting the boys line, but I don't know what happened. I feel like they just discontinued that line out of nowhere, like on the low. So right now, I got Homelander, Starlight, and Black Noir. I was really hoping that they would keep building that, but yeah, I don't know. If you know something about that, let me know in the comments. Because that was a line that I was really hoping would take off. The Boys is one of my favorite show, and I was really hoping to build on that, but you know, whatever. I also collect Star Wars Black Series, but I have a couple of rules when it comes to that franchise right there. Truth be told, Star Wars is probably one of the last lines I started collecting, so I have the least amount of them. But I still have my rules in place. And last but not least, I do love Legos too. And that goes kind of wide because Legos has their hands in everything. Marvel, Star Wars, regular Legos, you name it, Lego has it. So I have a little bit of each and every one of those, and I just go around picking and choosing what I really like when it comes to Legos. But for the most part, that's why I would say my heart is at when it comes to collecting. Those lines right there. I mean, I do have some other things on the side that I do pick up from time to time, but those are like outliers, and I wouldn't say I'm out there trying to get the whole line. So there we are. Marvel Legends, DC Multiverse, Star Wars Black Series, TMNT for Playmates, and then we have the Legos sprinkled on top like cherries for the ice cream. Those are the lines that I'm seriously collecting, and those are the ones that I'm gunning for. So let's talk about selective collecting. One of the first things I ask myself when I see something I like is, do I want to get all of these guys? How much would the entire team cost? How accessible are those characters? I don't make decisions based off one or two figures, unless it's a brand new line. I always have to look at the bigger picture. Like, for example, I love Jason Voorhees, and I've seen the NECA figures from Jason Voorhees, and I'm like, yo, Jason is tough. I love me some Jason. But then I start to pick it up, and I ask myself, like, yo, who is this guy gonna go with? Cyclops? That's not gonna work. Do I really want to get Jason and Freddy and Chucky and Michael Myers? And the answer for me is no. I don't want a whole horror shelf. I'm not really into having a horror section, and I fully understand that nobody can eat just one potato chip. All that first figure is gonna do is open up my appetite for the rest of them, so I have to know myself. Yes, I love Jason, but I don't want to start buying things off impulse that I'm probably going to regret in the future. I've trained myself to put that bag down and leave it for the next collector who probably specializes in just that kind of theme right there. Just because I saw the movie when I was 7 years old doesn't mean I have to have the figure. Everything is for everybody, but everybody is not for everything. And I try to live by that. When it comes to Star Wars, I told myself from day one, we are only doing pivotal characters. No newbies, no army building. I don't need 1,000 stormtroopers. I'm not trying to put together the Death Star. I had to figure out in my brain, what is it that I'm doing with these characters right here? Those were my Star Wars rules when I first started, and really it's because a lot of the new stuff sucks. I'm sorry. My heart with Star Wars is only based on nostalgic characters, so I will only go nostalgic character routes. So by that I mean characters like Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, Chewbacca, characters like that. I'm not really interested in new characters like Snook or whatever the case is. Shout out to you if that's your thing, but I only want the older characters. Mandalorian is an exception because that's one of the new things that they've done right. He kind of reminds me of Boba Fett too, so I have jumped onto the Mandalorian, but that's like an exception to the rule. The characters that our parents and grandparents can relate to, those are the ones that I'm checking for when it comes to Star Wars for the most part. With Star Wars, you can get carried away real quick. You see, I don't need 100 stormtroopers or 50 Praetorian guards, but you can go that route real quick before you know it. With me, 1 or 2 will get the point across. With the TMNT line, I could look at the card back and I could see real clear there's only 16, 20 of these characters. They're going for $10 each. I can get 2 of these characters all day, get the whole clique, and it won't be a problem. So that's a no-brainer for me. So when it comes to Playmates and TMNT, if they putting it out, I'm grabbing it, and that's it. I want everybody. And the price point is pretty low, so that's not a burden at all. Now, I am disappointed with the boys line from NECA. When they first started, it was just Homelander and Starlight. So I'm thinking to myself, yo, this line just came out, so if I stay on top of it, I can get everybody as they come out. It won't be a big deal. I grab them as they come out, and I can never fall behind. I knew I wanted everybody to, so I knew that that was an easy line for me to gravitate towards. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking this line just came out, so I don't even have to buy backwards. I can grab all of these guys for retail the moment that they drop, which is something new for me because every other line that I kind of invest in, I already started way before I even thought about it. So I was like, oh, this is something new. Let me see if I can grab it from day one. I guess it is what it is. At least I can say I have every figure that they released, which is like a whopping 3. Homelander, Starlight, and Black Noir. So if that's all they ever put out, I guess I got the whole collection. Even with Marvel Legends, that's like a whole universe within itself. You can break Marvel Legends into like 5 categories. At least I do, and this is how I look at it. Spider-Verse characters, X-Men characters, Avengers characters, comic book based characters, and MCU characters. That's how I break down Marvel Legends. I knew off the rip that I wasn't ready to do all of those sections at the same time. So I had to pick and choose, like, how am I going to jump into this? Off rip, I told myself, I am not doing any X-Men right now. We already know the X-Men prices are crazy. So I told myself, maybe I shouldn't start with that. When I first started, those prices were the craziest, and the Avengers was kind of hot, and it was just coming out. So I was like, yo, let me see what's going on with the Avengers, and I'll start with those guys. After my Avengers started building up, I started telling myself, okay, let me see what's up with Peter Parker and see if I can start building up my Spider-Verse, because that's a world right there that you can go your whole life collecting and not get everybody. You know what I'm saying? By the time that I did move on to X-Men, my Avengers and my Spider-Verse was almost as complete as it could be for that possible time right there. Those spaces were already filling up, so it made perfect sense for me to try to move forward and branch out with Marvel Legends. But I knew once I started going down that rabbit hole of trying to put together the Jim Lee X-Men, that was going to take a lot of time and energy. So I saved that one right there for last. At no time did I get an Iron Man and a Spider-Man and a Wolverine and try to make them all look cute together. Those are 3 different worlds of Marvel Legends, and I kept them separate for as long as possible. I would have just been all over the place and I would have felt overwhelmed. So I took my time and I built up my Marvel collection section by section, and I took my time doing it. I didn't move forward until I was ready to move forward, regardless of what pre-orders and new releases were coming out. So this is what I mean when I talk about selective collecting. You have to have a game plan, and you have to work your game plan the whole time. They're gonna throw things at you all day, but you have to know when to jump in and when to jump out, like Double Dutch. Let's talk about selling figures. To be 100% honest with you, I can count on my hands how many figures I've let go of in my life. And that's really because of one main reason. I don't buy figures I don't like. I just don't. I don't buy placeholders. I don't buy figures that are kind of, sort of, maybe, I guess. I understand 100% that my space is limited and I do not have time to be putting garbage up. Also, I don't want to sell figures. I don't want to live at the post office, and I don't want to be on Facebook Marketplace answering questions my whole weekend. I don't want to do that. So once I buy something, I tell myself, that's yours. That's mine's forever. That's it. Do you really want this figure? So now you already know I'm going to be extra selective when I'm out there looking at figures, because I already know in my head, I got to keep this. I never think to myself, oh, I'm just going to buy this right now and I'll sell it later. No, I'm not selling nothing. That's on me for being dumb. Don't buy figures you don't like. That's all I got for that. Displays and organization. Having a shelf stuffed full of figures is really only going to impress somebody who has no idea what it is that they're looking at. When you have somebody in your room that's picking apart your collection and telling you straight to your face that half of these don't mean anything, you're going to feel some type of way. So why even put yourself in that situation? I would only stick to figures that mean something to you personally or mean something in your collection. I would rather have a collection where all of my figures have space and don't look crowded in. At the same time, I want my figures to count and stand out. I think about figures the same way I think about Jordans for the most part. Jordans are Jordans, right? I mean, in name they are, but are they really? Every Jordan isn't built the same, and every Jordan doesn't qualify for a lottery. Lotteries kick in when a particular model calls for it. So when it comes to Jordans, basically it's like the first 12 that count. The first 12, those are the ones we're talking about. Then when it comes to those 12, we break it down even further, like me. I'm big on the 3s, the 4s, the 7s, the 8s, and the 11s, I think. Those are the ones I gravitate towards. That's where my head is at, and the color's like a whole nother story. Those are the ones that I concentrate on for the most part. If someone showed me an entire Jordan collection of every single number and every single color, I would be impressed that he got them, but at the same time, I would be like, yo, most of those are trash. I wouldn't want to be him. I think about my figures the same way. I don't want a whole bunch of filler figures just taking up space. I kind of want every single one of my figures to call attention. I want somebody who knows what they're looking at to be like, yo, I want all of this. This is sick right here. That's what I'm checking for. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm putting these things together. I really want to try my best to have a quality collection because I don't want to just fit in. I want to stand out. Now let's wrap this up with finances. So for the big ballers that find themselves rolling in money like Scrooge McDuck, this ain't for you. This is for the 9-to-5 people like me who are working off a budget and we're trying to make the most happen as possible. The reason that I've locked into only a few lines is basically because of finances and space, but mostly finances because with enough finances, you could just buy more space. I asked myself in the beginning before I even get one character, what am I trying to do with this here? Am I trying to get a full run of every character that's coming out? Is this a one-off? Am I only getting good guys? Am I only getting villains? What am I trying to bring to life? Because without a plan, you're going to be stuck. For example, I've been wanting to get into Mafex figures for a while, but the price, you already know, it had me a little apprehensive. And I don't go based just off one figure. I'll go a little bit deeper and ask questions like, how much is the entire Jim Lee X-Men? And if you know, you know, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I just can't be over here buying Mafex figures all willy-nilly just because they dropping them. I don't got it like that. I don't have the funds or the space for that. Now, if you watch my previous video, then you already know that I'm not the biggest DC Multiverse fan. I'm not a hater, but I'm not the biggest fan there is for those figures. Then someone in the comments was like, maybe you should try DC Mafex figures. And then a light bulb went off when I read that because I was like, word, I should just scrap all this and go with DC Mafex. And I could start that collection with the Justice League. So now I'm super hype and that's what I want to do. I have the brand, I have the figures, and I have the team that I want to work with. I know the amount of figures I want to start off with, and I can guess what it's going to cost me. So now I'm kind of locked into that. I feel way more comfortable having that type of a plan than just scrolling through pages and buying whatever I see all willy-nilly, because that's going to lead me nowhere. That's going to have me all over the place. Finances play a big part because remember, at the same time, Marvel Legends is still dropping new releases and still dropping pre-orders. At the same time, I'm still trying to build my Star Wars up. I still need clothes. I still need gear. My car is always thirsty. My kids is always hungry. These are things that are on rotation. Being able to do this in the first place, I already feel like it's a privilege, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people who probably wish they could buy things, but they can't for whatever reason. But doing it like this is how I've been able to manage my collecting without ever making it feel like it was a burden. My disappointment ratio is super low. I've let a lot of things pass me, but at the same time, everything I have counts to me, if that makes sense. And with that being said, that's basically how I've managed my collection from day one. Let me know in the comments if you have anything to add or if you have any tips that I left out. Until next time, peace.